Hey guys, welcome back to the Merit Partners podcast. We have a really special episode here today because we've got a good friend and the CGT expert, Jimmy Repasi. What's up, Jimmy?
How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. It's so good to have you here in our home here at Merit Partners. And of course, we've got the man who might have sold more CGTs than anybody in the country, Jonathan Hall.
No, I'm just excited to be here with you. It has been a long journey. We've talked about this for many, many years. I think we've known each other for 8 years. And you've gone all over the country to look at different cars when we've been together and stuff. So it's just been cool to really form a relationship and a friendship with you in a very meaningful way to me. And also to see the businesses develop, both of our businesses develop as they have over the years. It's just been really cool. And now you're here today and you were actually just inspecting another car for a potential buyer for him to enjoy. And cool to see you take the whole thing apart. And then we had some barbecue.
Yeah.
And got some good Southern barbecue and hung out. And so really, really cool.
Yeah, it was a good day.
It was a great day. So I want to start out with a softball question, Jimmy, which is why the CGT? Why did you decide this is the car that I want to focus on, that I want to be the expert in? What brought you there?
I think it mainly was because the car's so unique.
Yeah.
I'd been working at the dealer for about 7 or 8 years already, and getting really familiar with the street cars, even the street GT cars, and they all share a lot. There's a lot of similarities from a GT3 to a 911S. And so when I had my first opportunity to work on a Carrera GT, it was all new. It was like learning a whole new brand of car in a way. Yeah. And it was a new challenge, and I was just really excited and looking forward to a new opportunity to learn something.
Yeah.
And it just rolled into what it is today.
So you worked on one, and then you worked on another, and then all of a sudden it just kept coming?
Yeah, pretty much. I guess that's how a lot of these things start, but that's exactly what it was. It was just how amazed I was about the cars, how meticulous I went through the cars, and I was fortunate that very early on, the clients, the local clients that were bringing me their cars, they were also enthusiasts, and they really appreciated the extra time and effort that I put in, not only into servicing their vehicle, but to educate them on servicing their vehicle and the importance of it. And yeah, like I said, just those very fortunate to have those clients that supported me early on, and it was their word of mouth that gave me the opportunity that I had to move out on my own and do it full time.
Yeah, very cool.
I'll say one thing. I'll say one thing. I mean, I think Pat Long, if you told me this, but it was Pat Long said, driving a 911, you hop in, it's just like having another 911. You kind of know where it's at. But then when you get into Carrera GT, you know the experience of you getting into Carrera GT. And I know for me and the journey that I went on, which I think a lot of the fun is the journey to the car. The car itself is amazing, the enjoyment, but it's also, you get to go on the journey a lot of times with guys that are looking into these cars because you inspect them for them, right? And it becomes a friendship and a bond too, and you give them peace of mind a lot of time of like, hey, no, here's really what the car is. We even did that today. It was like, go inspect the car, go look at it. I want to know exactly what I'm getting, and the facts are the facts, right? And we talked about is it a good car or is it a bad car? You know what I mean? And you just helped me give me peace of mind even when I bought my first car, because I'm nervous. It's a lot of money and it's a big investment, but to give somebody just that security to say, no, this is what you need to look for, this is the information, was really, really comforting to me as an owner as well, just to enjoy that. And so you get to do that, and I think it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah. How did you learn about Jimmy? How did this connection happen? Because you guys have done many, many cars now.
I don't think I do.
How did it happen? Was it your black car or?
Yeah, I think you were at Fairfield, and it was like, no, Jimmy is the guy. I think it was we had a Carrera GT that we were selling.
Okay.
And we just wanted to get the facts on what the car was, and we were directed to Jimmy, and I can't remember if the car was there for service at Fairfield or not, but you had one and then 2 lifts right there, and I remember it was dedicated right to you there, and people were sending cars from all across the country, and your knowledge and expertise around it. So I think we got connected just on a car that you had serviced or were servicing.
So. Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I mean, it seemed to happen so quick early on. I do remember getting a few calls with some questions, and then you purchasing a car or two, and yeah, the relationship seemed to really grow pretty quickly from there. You know, not only on the Carrera GT side, but you know, also just between us, and you know, helping each other out, and you know, sending me out to help you find a good car and inspect it, and then sending the car back to me at the dealer to service it and you know, prepare it for sale. So
you want to make these purchases with an expert. You know, that's why I really view you. And I think why this time is so cool, just to unpack like, hey, you really are the CGT expert. And so for me, I know personally, having you alongside me and doing that, here are the things you need to look out for, Jonathan. Here's what I see on this car. And then knowing what services and kind of when they needed to be done was really neat.
Yeah.
And how many cars you had there? I mean, how many cars did you service at Fairfield? I mean, you had done how many engine services?
It was pretty much the last 8 years I was there. It was dedicated to just Carrera GTs, and I mean, so I'd probably say 80 to 100 cars. Yeah, full services there. You know, 1 or 2 at a time.
That's impressive.
Yeah, each one taking about a month and a half.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not a short in and out oil change service. These are.
And I think that's why like the relationships grow so quickly. It's start to finish. It could be 2 months inspecting a car, and then inducting the car into service and getting through it. You know, we're talking almost every day for 2 months. Every time there's a car. You know, whether it be at the dealer or now at my service center, and so yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, and yeah, it's a process, and I think we've gotten it pretty.
You've dialed it. You've dialed it. How many hours does a full service take?
So the billable hours and the actual hours are two very, very different things. A regular major service with the engine coming out, doing the valve adjustment, and then all the other additional items that we do when it's out, we bill at about 120 hours to start. And it easily takes, even the most basic one probably takes closer to 160. And then it could go up from there. But you know, with the amount of work that goes into it, and every car being a little different, we just group it all together, call it 120 hours, and then go forward. And every car gets, or every engine gets reassembled exactly the same way, catching it up on all the deferred maintenance and replacing gaskets and seals, and we do everything that we've ever seen leak or fail on an engine, we do while it's out. Because the goal is that it doesn't need to be removed again for anywhere from another 10 to 15 years. And yeah, so every car could be a little different, but.
Well, you're really preserving, what I love about what you're doing too is you're preserving the essence of what a Carrera GT was, right? Like when it left the factory, now these cars are 20 plus years old, and you're really preserving them. And I really appreciate that. I mean, just as a friend too, and I know we both love the Carrera GT deeply. So.
Yeah. So I want to talk about Repasi Motorwerks. You mentioned Fairfield, having a stint there of how many years total?
14 years.
14 years total.
Yeah.
So now you have your own company, Repasi Motorwerks. What led you to do that? What led you to start your own company, go out on your own, and start that?
I mean, I guess there was two big things that happened, or thoughts that entered my mind that made me want to do it. The first one, continuing on the topic earlier, was just learning. And I felt that I had reached a level at the dealer that I wasn't able to go any further in problem solving. You know, there's certain restrictions working inside of a dealership letterhead and under their roof. And I really wanted to work on solving long-term maintenance and cost issues with the car. And I didn't have the resources there to do that. And then, you know, the second half of that is knowing that if I was able to proceed with these, this research and development of parts and service techniques. Once I realized that it was going to become mutually beneficial for me and the client, that was when it all clicked.
Okay.
Realizing that I could provide a better service, meaning a better service of the vehicle and a better service experience for the client at a lower price point. It just, at that point, it
You're almost
just
taking the handcuffs off.
exactly. At that point, it became something that it went from something that I was kind of pushing off and waiting for the right time to wanting to do it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
It just all clicked. It made sense, and knowing every client that was still coming in to the dealer, knowing that I could provide them with a better experience outside of it, made me really enthusiastic about doing it.
Awesome. So obviously being able to service clients in that aspect is a high of having your own business. What has been a thing maybe you didn't expect or a tough aspect of now being a business owner that maybe you didn't think about before going in?
Probably just the amount of support, not to make it sound negative, but the amount of support that we got from our clients. And I don't know if it was because maybe a certain type of client was trying to stay away from the dealer when I was there. But for me going on my own, I did have the concern that I could potentially lose clients, whether I'd worked with them in the past or potential clients in the future because I wasn't under a dealership. And it was the exact opposite. Everything seemed to speed up at that point. And so their support was a little overwhelming at first. I remember the day we opened, there was 10 Carrera GTs in the shop, ready to be worked on and in the queue for major service work. And so good problems to have.
Yeah, for sure.
Without a doubt. And the team's been growing naturally and with close friends colleagues that I've worked with for years. And so as we continue to move forward, it's getting more and more streamlined. But I think that was probably the only thing I wasn't really expecting. And it's really the closest thing to a negative I could really think of.
That's something we talk about all the time here, is how do you grow the right way? Because you want to be able to still provide that level of service and relationship with your clients. If you grow too fast, you can lose that. So it's a fine balance of, you want to be able to help everybody, but you don't have the bandwidth to. So it's growing the right way at the right speed and all of that. So
you had a clear niche, and I think that the country wanted it. In terms of the guys that own Carrera GTs and other GT specialty cars, which is your niche, guys wanted somebody that they got Jimmy, and they got the expertise and the relationship there. And so I think that was there. And also I've enjoyed watching you two solve problems. Like you told me, like, hey, I'm kind of how the camshafts and the warranty items there with the factory. And that was one thing too when you were discussing it, and like, all these problems are solvable, right? They're just problems that are opportunities that turn into an opportunity to be able to figure out a solution for. And you continue to invent and create things in your business, and as these cars age and components get outdated. But I remember that camshaft specifically was one item of like, well, how, what's the warranty thing going to be like with this? So it's cool to see that just the growth there.
Yeah, so we get multiple calls a day, as you can imagine, about CGTs. We've got a couple in here for sale, and usually have at least one or two for sale at a time, right? So
one was on the lift right up there. He just took it down.
Seal gray car.
The seal gray car just came down off the lift.
Was for sale.
Was for sale. No longer. What is your advice to somebody who is calling in on a CGT, who knows they like the car, but maybe they don't know the right questions to ask, because these are very, very involved cars, right? This is not a GT3. This is not your standard car. So what are maybe 2 or 3 questions that you would recommend somebody to ask when they're calling in us or anyone around the country to ask on a CGT? Obviously, we'll lead them to you to have a full inspection done. But
that's probably the most important.
Okay.
Obviously, the cars are almost 20 years old now, and a lot of people, I think, may weigh out the physical condition or even the mileage a little too heavily at times. some clients are realistic about it, and some think that the car may only have 2,000 or 3,000 miles, or they're comfortable with the story that this the potential seller has, and they may get a little too far ahead of themselves. But the reality is it's almost 20 years old. A lot could happen in that time. The car's gone through a lot of maintenance and service work. And then also for a good period of time, the values had dropped so far that they found themselves not only in interesting collections that you may not expect a Carrera GT to be in today, but also repair shops or service centers, or even people servicing themselves. And
that's a really good point.
And you can't tell that from the outside or from the odometer. And secondly, just reach out and start that relationship with a broker or a dealership or whoever they're looking to buy the car from, somebody that's knowledgeable on the cars, and either know the answers to those questions already, the important questions, and they valued the car correctly according to the answers to the big questions, and or know the people and the resources to use. Because the reality is there's not a lot of Carrera GTs out there, and so most of the people that are selling them don't have a lot of experience. It could be the only one they've ever seen, and they walk up to it, or they assess the car based on other cars that they've seen, whether they be street 911s or other Porsches, and it looks good to them, but they don't necessarily know what to look for.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you come across some cars sometimes where you get into it and there are signs of maybe a shop that doesn't know CGTs worked on this car and maybe they shouldn't have?
Yeah, of course. And I mean, there's no negative things. I mean, sometimes it's just poor craftsmanship. That happens. Whether it's intentional or non-intentional, that's a different topic. But lots of times they're just doing their best, and they haven't, they don't have the experience, and they don't know how the car should be put back together. And also, again, the cars being of the age they are, they could have put the car back exactly the way they found it, but they got the car put together incorrectly.
Yeah, right.
Lots of the times it's not, most of the time it's not anything major, not real safety concerns. They're just little details, and the way harnesses are routed and hose clamps are oriented, like little things that if you know how the car looked leaving the factory, you can just look at it and just know it's off, and you could tell that the person working on it didn't have the experience to put it back correctly, and and it happens. And like I said, for the most part, it's usually not a safety related issue, so
that's good.
No harm done. Just something to take care of whenever you're in there next.
I know for me too, in those questions that you asked, in terms of is it a good car or a bad car? We've used that. We've used that. You taught me that language. Actually, I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting, because it's not like, hey, let's drop a paint meter on the car, right? And let's. But you're looking for indications of obviously paint work on the car in different areas. You're looking for the service records, to like a doctor kind of reads medical records, or say, hey, send me the service records, and I read them like a medical record of a doctor does. But is it a good car or a bad car? Because we always take a good car and make it better, right? But if it's a bad car, it's hard to turn that into necessarily a good car. And also, you can't just look at the car from around it. You have to, like you said, get it up on a lift. And how many times were we inspecting cars, like, do they have the right lift? Can I get it on the lift? And then you got to take the under panel bodies off, and you go through it and look at everything, which is what you just did. I mean, it takes an hour or so to rack the car, over an hour to rack the car. And so
there are a lot of screws on that car.
There are a lot. He had little, he had little cups with the screws in.
I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah,
It takes like 20 minutes just to take the undercarriage off or something.
Yeah, I mean it's
a lot of screws.
It's a process.
Yeah,
it's but yeah, if you know how they come apart, and you can do it pretty efficiently.
Becomes second nature.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now that we've talked about what it looks like beforehand, now let's assume they bought it. What does that lifestyle look like? You've owned the CGT now. They're coming to Repasi Motorwerks. What's your recommendation for servicing the car to paint that picture so that they can understand?
All right. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
And it's heavily dependent on the previous service history of the car and then its current necessities. Meaning, has a major service been done, or is the clutch measurement low? What I always recommend to my clients, because obviously I get a lot of these phone calls, and a lot of them are from current owners. They've had the car for X amount of years, 5, 10 years, and they've always heard about it. And I always have two things that I say, and they always find it funny because I'm a service center. We work on Porsches, specialize in the Carrera GTs, and that's how we make our money. But I'm not an advocate on over servicing the cars. And so I always tell them that if they haven't done it yet, we're approaching that 20-year mark, and it's not a bad thing to take it out and get that first one done.
The major engine service.
Yeah, the major service, because you do get to take care of a lot of known issues when you're in there.
Yeah.
Like Jonathan mentioned, camshafts being one. I'm sure there's going to be oil leaks, even if they're minor at this point, before they cause other issues. There's a recall that's done the first time the engine comes out. And so getting past that first one's always important to remedy these issues so they don't cause any more expense or downtime down the road.
Yeah.
Get to baseline. Basically.
Yeah, and then of course, that also allows us to reset the clock.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're doing everything that we see as well as everything that we've seen on other cars just to catch it up, reset the clock. And then at that point, there really isn't a reason to over service it or be worried about that major service moving forward again until there's a reason to take the engine out.
Okay.
So getting the one and taking care of some of the inherent issues is important. But once you're past that, there's really no need to go back in because the service interval is a little interesting because it's 4 years or 30,000 miles.
As I say, the manual says 4 years every 30,000 miles.
It's very similar to the rest of their cars.
Right.
It's almost like the same interval as like a 911.
Yeah.
Every 4 years or 30,000 miles, you do spark plugs.
Yes.
Or a box.
Yes.
But this is a 980.
It's exactly the same, and that's why it's like that. But what's interesting about this car is that they won't have 30,000 miles in 40 years, let alone in 4 years.
Right.
And so,
Not if I have
the one you saw today was about as close as you're gonna
exactly.
get. Yeah.
And so, what I always tell my clients is, if you haven't done the first one, it's not a bad idea to do it to catch the car up, and then moving forward, it's as they were already doing.
Yeah.
Dependent on how often they drive their cars, either an oil change every year or even every other, brake fluid flushes every other, just to keep the fluids clean in the car, and again, dependent on how often they actually drive the car, maybe a minor service in 6 or 8 years, halfway through that next major.
Yeah.
So the cost of ownership, of the car, it really isn't all that bad when you spread this across, the amount of years that you get in between these larger intervals.
Yeah. That's some gold nuggets.
Let's talk about the suspension. You cool with that?
Yeah,
I mean, let's talk about the suspension. I know you and you've done some things to modify on the KW as well, but can we just hit that real quick, because what happens to the suspension components over time, the factory suspension components, and why are people looking to KW Öhlins, and really what would be your recommendation there? And the car was not delivered with front axle lift. No cars came with front axle lift.
Right.
So 918 was delivered with that, but CGTs didn't get that option. So.
Well, again, I know I keep bringing up the age of the car, but that's the issue here. Is people always refer to mileage when they think about their maintenance, but those gas-charged shocks have been aging whether you're putting them to use or not, and so at this point in time, every Carrera GT that we inspect has hydraulic oil leaking from them, and they need servicing. That and even the technology in itself was old when it was put into the car. It was old motorsport design, and so technology has come so far as far as the dampening and the controlling of it. And then the third point is just how stiff the cars came from the factory. The spring rate on the car was very heavy, and those three aspects are the main reason why the car has the reputation it does, along with the tires and the age of the tires on a lot of these cars. But that's why it has that uneasy and almost a twitchy feel under power and over cracks on the road and deviation in pavement. And so, for all those reasons is why we always recommend our clients to if they must keep the car original, at least put original dampers back in it, like new original ones, just so they can do their job. Because with that stiff spring rate, without having that damping control that from it being gassed out, there's nothing there to help dampen it. And then if they like to go the aftermarket route, the two main options are Öhlins, which is a fantastic product, and the KW, which they just updated to their newest damper technology, and comes with 4-corner axle lift.
Which helps a lot of people get in and out.
Yeah.
People can actually drive them and get them into their driveway and take them home. And I think it was David Donahue, one of these guys, was talking about driving the car on the track early on when it was, and it did feel like the car was on a knife's edge, And so I think that because it wants to move on you.
It's kind of the reputation of the car,
if you're
right?
not,
It's
all about smooth inputs, on the
stiff.
car. If you hit the throttle, it's.
Yeah,
so my question, I know you spend a lot of time in these cars, and obviously you have.
First time I got mine, I drove straight to the mountains to go with my wife.
With the stock suspension?
In the rain. You remember that one? The
With
black
stock
car.
suspension, not KWs or Öhlins?
No, it had stock. Or no, I had the KW. I'm sorry, no, I had the KW lift system on that car.
Okay. I mean, don't get me wrong. The cars aren't unsafe to drive if you're just driving the car like a normal car, but any sort of spirited driving or
getting the car upset.
Under load, accelerating the car hard. I mean, that's when the difference between having old suspension and new suspension is night and day. Mm-hmm. And it's probably the number one item that we upgrade on the Carrera GTs.
Interesting.
And because and with that, it's also probably the most common item that we put in, and within 24 hours or 48 hours of the client receiving their car back, you get that call.
Yeah.
And I'm always excited because I always know exactly how the conversation is going to go. And sometimes it hurts my feelings a little bit because I put 160 hours into rebuilding their engine, and
they're focusing on the suspension.
And they call me about the suspension, but I don't let that get to me because I know the preserving of the car and the preservation of the value and for what the car is isn't as exciting as them being able to now drive the car. In their words, how they've always wanted to drive the car. Without having that nervousness, that knife edge feel, actually being able to feel the car move and absorb corners and accelerate out of turns, like they never could before. They were just always too scared. Absolutely.
Yeah. Very cool. This question's for both of you. So I'm very curious about your opinion on exhaust on these cars. I have heard straight piped, and I have heard stock, and everything in between. What do you guys believe is the right? Because this V10 can sound epic. It is one of the best sounding cars on planet Earth. But you can also go overboard with it. What's your opinion on where the exhaust should be on these cars? You like stock?
I haven't heard Jimmy's yet, not to plug it, but I haven't heard his. I know one of our friends, Chris. He got one. He was really excited for it. So I know you've done a lot of work in testing. You've a lot more experience than I have. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest, I love the way the car sounds from the factory.
Okay.
You know, it's not as loud as people always expect when they buy the car, or necessarily want. But and so I understand why people go an aftermarket route, and so because of that, when we were developing our exhaust, that was the goal the entire time. It took us 3. I think we made 3 different ones, but we had CAD drawings of 4 different ones with some tests done, and all we wanted to do was make sure that we kept that signature V10 Carrera GT howl and didn't disrupt that throughout the entire RPM band, and just turn that volume up for the clients that wanted that. And so, you know, after all these revisions, we finally felt that that's what we did. And the way I describe it to clients is, if you ever hear your own Carrera GT or a Carrera GT drive by, and you hear that sound, we bring that sound from the outside of the car into the car, because sitting in it with the engine behind you, which is very mechanical, its noises that it makes, and the exhaust being so far behind you, you don't get that. All the bystanders and everybody else at the Cars and Coffee get it as you pull away, but you don't necessarily get that inside the cockpit. And so that was always our goal. Is just to maintain that tone and that signature sound, and just bring it into the car. And
that's awesome.
There's a few other options out there, which I think are, you know, perfectly fine, and they sound great. I just think that ours specifically has retained that original note the best.
Cool. Have you heard this exhaust?
I haven't, but I apparently need to buy one, and maybe Merit should just buy one for every Carrera GT we sell. You know, we put it on display here, and then every Carrera GT we sell comes with a Repasi exhaust. So
I love that.
For me personally, the fact that it's got the LMP 2000 motor, right, that was retired, and then it wasn't raced, the whole history around that, I just love the history aspect of that motor and the original sound of it, and it being in that car is so cool. Also having 4 kids, not wanting to be super loud. I am totally an original purist, me personally. So I like the car just the way it sounds from the factory. So the fact that you said that yours is maintaining the purity of the car, I really love. And I like to drive the car. The best version of it for me is when it's open top and the stock exhaust. You know, and it's bringing that outside right into the inside. The same thing that you're talking about, the way you described yours. So I'm totally sold.
2 stock guys. Well, slightly stock. Your own.
I love the stock sound.
Okay.
Not a straight pipe guy. There's a few options out there that
I agree. The straight pipe is just it's too much.
It changes the sound entirely.
It does.
On top of the volume itself being on the extreme side.
Is there any liability risk or reliability risk with straight pipes, or no? Is it fine?
No, I mean it's fine.
Okay.
It's just I've removed more of those than I've put those on. I guess that's a short answer.
Yeah, that's good. So you both, I mean, I think we all love Carrera GTs. Like you started this with, they're so unique. There's nothing like them. What is the one aspect though of the Carrera GT to you and you that makes that car so special for you? You mentioned the motor, the story behind the engine is so cool to begin with. But what is the one thing for you on this car that is so special and unique?
It's a hard
question.
Because there's a lot. The door handles?
I mean, because there is a lot. And I mean, the short answer is all the little things that make it unique. And like Jonathan said, the engine, the suspension, it's all Heim joint, it's all solid, it's all push rod, straight from motorsport. And then I think the most obvious is the chassis. And just the structure of it being carbon fiber. It's the stiffest chassis Porsche had made all the way up until the 991 GT3 with a cage, and it weighing only 200 pounds is even more of a feat.
The tub only weighs 200 pounds.
Yeah, the tub.
Holy cow!
And so I think all of those things just make it such a unique driving experience that no matter what you do to a different car, you can't replicate that. And I think those major items are just so unique and just coming together, in a 6-speed standard transmission.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that's kind of covered
I
perfectly,
mean,
but
he absolutely nailed it. I think, on a personal note, right? It was the car of our generation in terms of it was an achievement car for me. I mean, we couldn't necessarily afford it. Always wanted to own one. It was the poster car. We're in our mid-30s, and I really believe that the Carrera GT and the cars of that generation, 90s and 2000s, manual, analog, all those cars are, the collectors of our generation are going to gravitate into those. And I never dreamed that I could own one, and then purchasing one and putting a lot of miles on them, you just fell in love with them. I think that's the thing. You start to it becomes your first love. I was talking about this, I've tried some other cars, and I just keep coming back to the Carrera GT where I just can't shake it. And the whole thing of I met Grant Lawson, who designed the car, and he walked me through the rear, from the 550 Spider, and just the way the rear looks, and then the setup of where the shifter, the shifter is.
What is the story about that? That is so unique. Where the shifter is placed in that car.
Well, I mean, it's all racing. I mean, what I would say is that the center, that stack, came from obviously most like a race car. That's why you have the birch and ash, because you hop in and you turn it on
so
and
unique.
go.
No other car has the shifter up here.
Yeah, and it looks weird from the outside.
Yeah.
But I've never heard somebody drive the car and ever think it was weird or
it just works.
or awkward.
Yeah.
It really is the most natural place for it.
Right.
And but it does aesthetically, looking into it, it does look a little out of place because we're so used to seeing lower in the center console. But I think that's why they did it. It's in your line of sight. It's inches from your 3 o'clock position on the steering wheel, and that's all they were worried about. Is just the ultimate driving experience, and so that's where it ended up.
So meeting the guy that designed the car, right, and then also all the relationships that come through the car, having sold the cars that we've sold, and then meeting you, and then it's all these. I've driven with a lot of my friends in the car on different mountain roads, and it's just all these relationships and the community that the Carrera GT owners that come together make the car that much more better, right? The car is exceptional, it is, but then you stack it on top with the people, it makes you love it even more. And it's a total A to A car. It's not an A to B car, right? You're not driving, some people will drive. We have plenty of friends that are driving it to the supermarket or whatnot. But for the most part, you're getting in the car, you know it's effort, you know it's work, but you're looking forward to that. You're putting the phone away in the glove box and you're going for a drive, and you're there to do that one thing, and everything else, you forget about everything else, for a little bit. And so I think that experience for me is one that makes it really special versus just hopping in a 911. You can pretty much do anything while you're driving the 911. But
it's the problem with a lot of modern cars. Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well, Jimmy, thank you so much, man.
It was a pleasure.
Hope you enjoyed your time here.
Always.
Unfortunately, I know you got to get to driving the CGT inspection. That's the worst part of it, probably.
Yeah, the worst part about the inspection is the road test.
Yeah, and we'll get Mills to send you some brisket. Get him to Mills.
Thank you. Yeah,
thanks for coming down for a proper Southern barbecue.
No, it was a
pleasure.
pleasure.
And for all the years of and I'm excited to see what the future holds as well. And I'm just the fact that you started your own business and where you're headed, and we just feel grateful to know you and for the partnership. So thanks so much, man, over the years.
Feel the same. It's always great to come down here and see how much you've grown. I feel like every time I come down, there's another member of the team and more cars in the building, and so it's great to have watched you and your company and team grow as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. We'll see you on the next one.
It was fun.